Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, time for my weekly review of this week's episode of Wild Isles. And this week Wild Isles looks in particular at freshwater. And I have to admit that I was quite looking forward to this episode, particularly for the footage of the hobbies in it. Now, this makes up the sort of the opening, the excerpt, if you like, before the official sort of titles come on. And I really enjoyed it. It was really well worth the wait. In fact, my only criticism of the scene at all was the fact it wasn't longer, which is not really a criticism when you think about it, but it looks absolutely amazing. You've got these like incredible shots. First of all, the opening is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful openings to a wildlife documentary I've ever seen, with the dragonflies slowly heating their bodies up in the mornings, waiting for the sun to rise, and with all the dew kind of sort of bedazzling them, and these gorgeous shots. And then once they start to fly, you see the hobbies begin to hunt, and they had quite a few shots of the hobbies in midair taking dragonflies, but dragonflies dodging them, and it was brilliant. It looked like a little dogfight up there. And then the best shot by far is the one with the hobby as it comes screaming down. I say screaming down, it's in slow motion, but you can tell it's going quite quick. Just comes like absolutely like ghosting over the water, and it takes out a dragonfly as it's laying its eggs just sort of above the surface. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And again, my only complaint is that they don't spend longer showing you more of them. It's absolutely amazing. I particularly enjoyed the shot of the hobby coming in head on in slow motion. It's absolutely fantastic. It's the kind of thing you'd never really be able to register in real life, just because it would be moving so quickly. But in slow motion you really see it, and the fixed intent expression on the hobby's face as it's kind of lining up as it comes into strike is absolutely brilliant. Another sort of section I really enjoyed was the bit with the salmon in it. Obviously, seeing salmon spawning and jumping up waterfalls is fairly common. I mean, a lot of documentaries do it. There's even been documentaries like Nature's Great Events actually had a whole entire episode on the salmon and as they go along. But this had some really interesting stuff in it. For a start, the footage of the salmon actually leaping, they got it below the water, but also from almost directly above with those incredible cameras they show you in the diary entry of how they actually position them right on the rocks. So the salmon seem to literally leap into the camera. It looks absolutely amazing. And they also showed some pretty cool shots of the sort of below the water. I found particularly interesting from a biological perspective how they found actually salmon do almost like practice runs first. They do sort of small leaps to try and gauge the distance, which kind of makes sense when you think about it. You're not going to sort of do a blind test first and just sort of think, well, here we go. You're going to sort of work out exactly how far the waterfall is, so how much energy you need to sort of leap up it. But the best bit by far was actually the bit with the dolphins in it. That bit, this is the first bit I think of the entire series that I kind of felt that the strapline for this series began to make some kind of sense. The idea that Britain has some amazing wildlife events which are kind of up there with anything in the world. It actually felt kind of like an event, and the sort of the dolphins leaping really close to the shore as it turns out, and in that really narrow deep channel, and taking out the salmon and playing with them, that looked fantastic. And it did feel like something that would be recognised worldwide, and kind of this kind of rather unique, innovative behaviour, and a really good chance to see dolphins up close and personal. It was absolutely fantastic, and I think it helped that it was bottlenose dolphins, and they obviously are quite well recognised species, so it feels more of kind of like a great natural event because it's a species which is absolutely recognisable worldwide. And it doesn't help that it's dolphins, and therefore they're really popular as well. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that scene. But then finally, I really enjoyed the bit with the raft spiders in it. In fact, this episode actually had some really good bits with kind of much smaller, more intimate wildlife behaviour. So you've got the bit with the raft spider and how it hunts. The bit when it was chasing, I think, that pond skater, which was leaping over the top of it, was absolutely amazing. And it was really cool. They show it for quite a long time, how the spider keeps coming in, the skater keeps jumping, and eventually the spider just gives up because it's just not worth the energy. But it was absolutely incredible because you always see those little insects, don't you, sort of skittering across the surface of like lakes and ponds. but you never really think of like what their behaviour is. You kind of just ignore them. So that was really cool. And then the bit where the spider caught a diving beetle larvae was absolutely amazing. It was like, kind of looked like a scene from I say this a lot, but kind of like a scene from Alien or the Predator. It kind of looked almost out of this world, didn't it? Of kind of the larvae kind of thrashing around as the spider kind of subdued it. It was absolutely really, really cool, and it had a kind of an unworldly feel to it. A lot of obviously sort of pond life does kind of feel a bit strange and weird anyway, and so to see it really up close in that kind of like macro lens with really kind of great detail was really, really, really cool to see. And it also shone quite an interesting portrait on a species which I did know about. I had heard of raft spiders before, but didn't really know a lot about them. And so it was quite cool to see kind of its behaviour up close and personal. But the best scene of really quite close, intimate behaviour by far in this episode was the bit with the leeches in it. Now, this was amazing. It was probably my favourite bit in the series so far, I think. Up there with the hobbies. Certainly, it was beautifully shot, and it got these little baby toadlets kind of moving across this like marsh area to get to back to the woods where they obviously spend most of their time. And it had them being hunted by leeches. Now leeches must be one of the most reviled animals worldwide. I think there can't be many people that like leeches. Certainly not anymore. You know, now that their medicinal properties have by and large been kind of proved to be untrue, at least in terms of bleeding people anyway. But it was absolutely amazing to see them hunting, because I'd never really thought of leeches as hunters, really. Well, they suck blood, don't they? So I suppose in a way that's kind of hunting, but not in the terms of kind of taking animals and eating them whole. But it had these amazing shots. First of all, the leeches sort of sneaking up on them, and leeches have that kind of weird way of moving anyway, where they kind of almost like suck themselves along. They kind of look like a big kind of hose pipe, and they kind of like you can see almost like the muscle move along them in a way that they kind of move in a similar way to snakes, but in that kind of different way. It kind of looks a bit like one of those children's toys which kind of move in and out. You know those I can't remember what they're called exactly, but you put them downstairs and they're kind of like big giant springs. Leeches look a bit like that. But the bit I really, really found fascinating was you also see them kind of sniff along as well, and it does look like they're smelling because they kind of do that with their kind of one end of their bodies as they kind of like hone in on their target. But the bit when they strike the little toadlets and then swallow them whole and they literally suck them down looked absolutely disgusting. I mean, it must be one of the worst ways to die, surely, in nature. It just looked disgusting, and the idea of it going and that's the end of you. And once they've got you, they've got you. And it really must be once they've got you, because of course, I mean, like humans can't really pull a leech off them, even though they're only like 15 centimeters long, which I know is obviously feels quite big, but next to a human in terms of body size, there's nothing at all. But they've got those three sets of teeth, and therefore they kind of just lock in, and you can only really get them off with like salt, or in the olden days when people smoked cigarettes, you could burn them off with a cigarette end. But the idea that that once they've got you and you're outside of a toadlet, that really must be it. I mean, there's no way you can escape. Just the way ate the entire thing a whole and just gulped it down was disgusting, but also fascinating. And that really was, I think, the highlight of the entire episode for me. To be honest, it was just brilliant. In fact, the only thing that really disappointed me about this episode was the bit with the osprey in it. I mean, they show that in the trailer, and they show that in the stinger trailer for this episode, last episode. But it is literally just one shot of that osprey hunting. And I know they do it to sort of show the ecology of kind of beaver ponds, and that's all well and good and brilliant. But I would have liked a bit more. I mean, I know ospreys are famous anyway for being, these like world-renowned British animals. Like Loch Garten ospreys are like, up there with I don't know, like lions in the Masai Mara. They're kind of almost they're almost synonymous with that particular place. So it would have been quite cool to have focused a bit more on them, and maybe show some behaviour that we haven't seen before. I don't know. I mean, I do just love ospreys, to be fair. So maybe I'm just completely biased, but I was disappointed. I mean, the shot itself is amazing, gorgeous, but I just wanted a little bit more. But I suppose that's not a bad thing with the documentary. It's better than sort of say with Planet Earth, the original one, where, to be honest, by the end of most episodes, I was kind of waiting for them to end. because it just felt a bit like relentlessly on and on and on, just different sort of very short clips of stuff happening. So maybe that is a strength, but I don't know, I just felt a bit sort of wanting something. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I mean, next week we're going to get the last proper episode of Wild Isles, when they look at the sea and salt water. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I particularly like that bit in the trailer when you see that like explosion of blue. I don't know what it is. It might be like it could be like eggs being produced. It could be like a defense mechanism. I've no idea what animal it is, but it's going to be really cool to find out. I don't really know a lot about sea life, to be honest, so it's going to be quite fun. The only thing I do think is that they've kind of used up their big set pieces for the ocean stuff already, haven't they? Because they had the orcas in the first episode, and then they've just used the dolphins in this episode. So unless they go back to them, which I suppose is possible, but they haven't really done that in other episodes. Yeah, I kind of wonder what they're going to do, but it could be exciting to find out. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. You can see the links to my other Wild Isles videos in the description below this one if you're interested in checking them out. You can also follow me on Twitter, there's a link down there, and you can click subscribe if you feel like it, obviously on the button below as well. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.